We are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our ever-growing channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to PATC. Welcome into the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. PATC community, do not be afraid to be a legend with your comments in the chat room and with your phone calls later in the show. I can't believe what I'm about to say. I cannot believe it. I think we're real close here at PATC to having to take an L on this. As much as we've been on, as much as we have given you the peak, I think we might have to take an actual L on the timeline of this. We've been talking about the first quarter of 2024. We said there'd be a declaration. What if there's a declaration coming out of the meeting tomorrow, the Board of Trustees at Florida State? What if that's the actual declaration? We'll be 10 days away from the first quarter of 2024. We reported this. What is it now? I don't even remember anymore. December 26th, 360 days ago, we reported that this was going to happen, but it wasn't going to happen until January or February or March. It might officially happen tomorrow. Now, maybe it won't. Maybe they'll just have the Board of Trustees meeting. What am I talking about? What am I talking about, you're asking? The Florida State Board of Trustees virtual meeting set up tomorrow, December 26, 2023. Now, last night we did a live late show. We had to at Peek Around the Corner. We had to. We were squeezed. We were given information from the Florida State Money Perch. And we had to break the news to you last night that the Florida State Board of Trustees was going to post a new meeting in the next 48 hours. We are the ones that broke the news last night here on the live show. And I'm going to tell you how we knew. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to give you a little peek behind the curtain at Peek Around the Corner. We were told that early in the morning, early in the morning, today of Thursday, there was going to be a Zoom meeting to plan to schedule the date for either Friday, either was going to be posted today or Friday. We got confirmation of that Zoom meeting from a whole nother source, but we got it from the Florida State Money Perch. There was an actual Zoom meeting early this morning in Tallahassee. We knew about it last night. We knew that it was going to be scheduled. The meeting was going to be scheduled for Thursday, or I was going to be posted on Thursday or Friday. So we were able to break that news to you. So again, here we are doing the best we can. The rebel outpost of college football. And it looks like we could be 10 days off from 360 days ago. And I know that's a pretty pretty strict ruling. But if we're 10 days off, we're going to be 10 days off. We're going to have to take the L. We're not going to take it today, but we might take it tomorrow. Holy smokes. But other than that, things are going as we have reported to you in the last 360 days. Florida State Board of Trustees meeting tomorrow. They're going to start their formal discussions on divorce proceedings from the ACC. Still got a long road to go. Still have, they're going to bring up some legal challenge, see what the court says, see what impact, see what feedback they get at Florida State, see what kind of leverage. It's all about leverage for a settlement, right? How much do the ACC want to expose on discovery? It's all about leverage. Everybody's playing the leverage game. Everybody's leaking. Everybody's leaking. Everybody's leaking. And I got to tell you something. And look, people have motivations for giving me information. We have been truthful about that. We were truthful about that when we broke the USC to the Big Ten March 31st, 2022. In our tweets of the 3 months of reporting on the story that nobody knew was going on, we said there was motivation behind the information we have been given. Same thing as we do this college football YouTube channel. So keep that in mind. We're being transparent as possible. I'm not paid by anybody. There is no strings attached. But we've got this huge Rolodex of sources that have been created over time. BTM and his associates, the Money Perch, and now other people. And some of that is motivated leaks. And that also trickles down to the reports that we're getting now. There is a reason why we've been going into the Holy Smokes Theater constantly for the last couple months, telling you about the first quarter 2024. Clemson is very active. By the way, if you watched the show last night, always got to keep your head on a swivel because we can pop up at any time. On the show last night, we went through an ESPN article from Pete Thamel. They confirmed a lot of what we've been saying for the last 360 days, but there was a little bit of a difference between Pete Thamel, ESPN, and what we've been hearing when regards to Clemson. Pete Thamel sort of phrased it, sort of placed Clemson more than a couple paces behind Florida State in being ready, to being willing to go out there and create a legal challenge to try to create leverage for an ACC settlement. Pete Thamel's reporting sort of had Clemson maybe a little bit closer to North Carolina when it came to the willing, ready part of it. We have Clemson real tight up next to Florida State. We got them both at the center of the stage at the Holy Smokes Theater. We have our reasons for it. We're going to go through an article of Yahoo Sports' Ross Dellinger. We're going to go through it. A lot of it's recap. I'm not going to spend much time on the recap. I'm going to skip those paragraphs. There's a link provided in the description. You can read the whole article after this live show. But if you read between the lines, I think this Yahoo reporting is closer to what we think where Clemson's at. Yahoo's got Clemson much closer to Florida State in the willing and able and ready to go than ESPN. There is cloak and dagger, pressure. There is boosters, the money perch, the big boosters. I'm going to get to everybody here. I'm going to get to the article. I got to clean up aisle 9 a little bit here. Aisle 9. John Teal, thanks for the super chat. It's over. I'm taking Clemson, Georgia Tech, and Miami in the divorce. Don't try to talk me out of it. The Big Ten knows how to treat me. Take care. Thank you for your super chat, John Teal. Thanks again for your continued generosity to this channel to help us keep the lights on. Thank you so very much. Expedition Greg, thank you so much for your membership. And once again, at Early Peak membership, we're going to go through that later in the show. Thank you so much, Expedition Greg. I appreciate your friendship and your continued generosity to the show and all your contributions in the chat and letting me know what's going on Twitter. Where was I? I got to clean up aisle 9 here. We got to clean up aisle 9. Okay. I'm going to be kind here. I'm going to try to be kind, right? I'm going to try to be kind. Look, there is no merger talks going on between the ACC and the Big 12. There's nothing going on, ladies and gentlemen. How could there be something going on? How? You think Brett Yormark just fell out of the turnip truck yesterday? Do you see what he did with the Pac-12? Do you see what he did with creating a relationship and momentum and inertia with his current media partners of the Big 12, ESPN and Fox? Do you really think Brett Yormark is in a merger talk with the ACC right now? Maybe later when it's on Big 12's timing, when it's on their watch, when they have the highest ground possible versus an ACC. Think the Big 12's really in merger talks with the ACC? Brett Yormark knows what's going on. Of course, there is no merger talk going on. Another cleanup that I have to do on aisle 9. There is no AAU requirement for the Big Ten. Please stop. Please stop. Please stop. I've been waging this battle for years, and I've lost because it's still out there. that there is this AAU requirement for a school to definitely get a Big Ten invite. There is no AAU requirement. Stop. There is none. If Oklahoma and Texas would have called Kevin Warren instead of Sankey, Oklahoma would be a Big Ten member. They did not. They called the SEC. But if they would have called the Big Ten would have brought Oklahoma in. Michigan State became a Big Ten university 8 years before they became AAU. AAU is a private organization. The Big Ten's not going to give a private organization a veto pen over their invitation list. AAU is shorthand for big, grand, successful research university. Or some of those schools aren't all that big, but they're big in research. Okay? The Big Ten wants research universities. They want a commonality. All these schools do. Heck, even all these conferences do. Even SEC, look at who the SEC has brought in over the last few expansions. Big research universities. Florida State's a good research university. Florida State doesn't need AAU before they get into the Big Ten, if they get into the Big Ten. So stop with it. Look, we're not making an announcement that Florida State's going to the Big Ten, but Florida State is not going to be stopped because they don't have an AAU membership. Stop it. Honestly. Jim Delaney said AAU first, but not only. Kevin Warren said there is no AAU requirement. I don't know how much more evidence you need, honestly. So the people out there, stop it, okay? You're just, I don't know. Okay, it's a battle I've been going on for years, and it's still out there. Okay, how many more, any more aisles I have to clean up before we get to the story? That's it for now. There is, we went through Pete Thamel's reporting. We're going to go through Ross Dellinger's reporting. Again, I have a little bit of a difference with Ross Dellinger. I'm going to explain why. But for the most part, Ross Dellinger's reporting goes right up against our reporting, and it looks game on, folks. Game on. Florida State is about to start their divorce proceedings. Let's get to it. First of all, I want to thank everybody who's come on in early into the show. I appreciate it. I want to appreciate all of you, all of your comments, for smashing the like button, for subscribing to the channel. Your comments are unbelievable. Your phone calls are what makes the show go. And I don't say thank you to you enough. I'm a very difficult college football channel to watch, to follow. It's true. Let's be honest. The fat guy from Minnesota, my accent, my loud voice, my horrible singing. And when I get into something, I dig, poke and prod. And I think for some of you, you might be attracted to that. For most of you, you probably think it's a little bit too much. But that's the beauty of college football YouTube channels. We're all different. We're all different, unique. I know that we're kind of hard to take. Plus we come on at all different times. So that's difficult, right? That's difficult. We're a difficult college football YouTube channel to follow. So I want to say thank you to all who actually check us out, go to our channel, see when we've come on, catch our episodes. I want to thank you for your incredible support. I appreciate it. And I also want to thank you all for understanding, acknowledging, having fun with the Holy Smokes Theater, because this is the way we've been able to give you information, hopefully in an entertaining manner that doesn't burn our sources. Okay. Thank you so much. D5, Terps is in the house. Flugs is elite. Good man. Awesome. Lawson Clips is in the house. Sergeant Pickles, Opie, early peak member. Early peak member. Coos Corner. Well, we have seen anything is possible in conference shifts. Richard L. No easy being on the point of the spear. Yeah. Colorado Buffaloes, they were the point of the spear in the Big 12. Richard L., a very sneaky, wise comment in the chat room. This is why I love the PATC community. Richard L. coming in. Randy Taylor, what's a few days? Got to be strict with this. Got to be strict. You know, you guys, I take the W's. I celebrate, I take the W's. I think we might be taking an L tomorrow. Maybe not. We'll see what comes out of the Board of Trustees. We might be 10 days short of our reporting of 360 days ago. Okay. Jared Jones is in the house. Chad Bracey is in the house. Illa Buck is in the house. Big 12 Mafia. Holy smokes. Nathan Brown has strut himself into the house. Jeff Beaver. Movie Time Blues. Hagen. Obsidian 75. Stephen McNeely. Early peak member. Canes all day. Doubt that Miami will have an on-campus stadium anytime soon. Canes all day. Thanks for coming on in. I appreciate it. Mr. Hurricane. Go Black 45. Coy's in the house. Curtis Brown is in the house. Holy smokes. We got just about everybody. I'm sure I missed some of you. I apologize. Let's get to it. Okay. We're going to go through this article. And again, most of this we're going to agree with here at Peek Around the Corner. Most of this is what we've been reporting for 360 days. 361 days, I guess. There's a little bit of this. We're gonna clarify our position here at Peek Around the Corner. We're gonna let you know the difference that we have, and of course, you make the decision on what you think is happening. Cloak and dagger. Sources, Florida State expected to soon start process of leaving the ACC. Ross Dellinger of this morning. We're going to go through the article. We're not going to go through the whole article. I'm going to be skipping the recap paragraphs. Again, you can read the whole article. There's a link in the description. Then I'm going to get to your comments, starting with the super chats, starting with the early peak members. Get to your chats, and then we're going to open up the phone lines. And we're going to be on the air as long as it takes. As long as it takes to take everybody's phone calls, everybody's opinions, angles on this. Okay. Florida State is expected to soon start the process of its long-discussed divorce from the ACC, multiple sources told Yahoo Sports. The Seminoles conference affiliation is at the center of a scheduled meeting Friday of the Florida State Board of Trustees, and the result of the meeting could produce a formal legal filing in what many describe as the first step to achieving an exit from the ACC's binding grant of rights. Now, here is the virtual meeting. I expect there to be an agenda attached pretty soon. So keep your head on a swivel. Let me know in the chat if there is an agenda attached. It looks like it's going to be an open meeting. So we're thinking that it's going to be 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Central. So I'm going to start a live PATC show tomorrow about 8:45 Central, 9:45 Eastern. Now, I am not going to play the live feed, right? I'm not going to play the live feed of the meeting. Hopefully, we can all find the link, and I will put a link in the description of the meeting, so you can watch it So hopefully you have two ways of watching the meeting and watching our show. I'm going to try to keep up with it on my phone as I'm doing the show, and also on Twitter, on X, to go through people's comments, reporters' comments. So we're going to be together trying to figure out what's being said. I got a feeling if it's going to be high drama in the Board of Trustees meeting tomorrow in Tallahassee, Florida. But we're going to do it together. Okay? We're going to do it together. All right. So getting back to this, the Seminoles Conference affiliation at the center of the scheduled meeting Friday. The result of the meeting could produce a formal legal filing. And I'm going to say this, if it produces a formal legal filing tomorrow, or the next day, anytime before January 1st, unfortunately, we at Peek Around the Corner are going to have to take the L, because we thought this was going to happen first quarter of 2024. So we'll see what happens. That's not really important to the story, but I'm being honest, being transparent. This is what we thought was going to happen. And we gave the date range of January 20 to February 6 on Clemson. We'll see if that changes. We might have to take the L on that. We said that a couple months ago. We had all the reasons to believe, we reported to you all, we gave you the peek around the corner, that this was all coming down on the first quarter 2024, and we might be 10 days off. The FSU Board of Trustees announced Thursday its meeting to comply with a state open meetings law requiring members to give the public a 24-hour notice before gathering. Multiple sources with knowledge of Florida State's potential plans spoke to Yahoo Sports for this story under condition of anonymity. Again, the reason why we were able to break the news last night on our live show that there was going to be a posting on the board either Thursday or Friday for a meeting coming up is because we knew of a Zoom meeting that they were going to have early this morning, Thursday morning, to get it set up. And that's exactly what happened. Details around the specific legal step in which Florida State leaders plan to take is unclear. But legal experts say that the school could seek what's called a declaratory judgment action. DEC action is what lawyers are calling it, in an effort to get a judge to rule that a school is not bound to its contract with the ACC. The legal step's aim is the grant of rights, a legal document between the ACC and its member and TV partner ESPN, binding the parties to one another through the 2035-36 academic year. Any filing would presumably be made in a local court friendly to the school's interests. So what people are expecting is this legal filing, go to a court in Tallahassee, and a judge would say, yeah, you've got a case. And all this is to hopefully, from Florida State's point of view, is start to create leverage across the negotiation table with the ACC. That's all. That's what this is about. Create enough leverage, bring enough bags of cash to create leverage to get out of the ACC. The maneuver comes less than a month after Florida State became the first undefeated major conference champion to be left out of the college football playoff, a decision that rocked those in Tallahassee and accelerated the school's planned exit strategy. This week's potential legal move is not expected to serve as a notice of departure to the ACC. And this at Peek Around the Corner, we've been reporting this for months and months and months. Whatever's going to happen, the stake in the ground when it comes to the legal filing, here is our declaration It wasn't going to be about notice of departure. It wasn't going to be about notice of withdrawal. It's not happening. That's not the next step. A lot of people reported that was going to be the next step. We told you, you got to push the brakes on that. That's not how this is going to work. Any departure from the ACC would be at least more than a year away. However, such a legal foray could set the stage for more ACC programs to follow suit, challenging the league and its grant of rights. We've been calling that the bull rush. The bull rush. Okay. The conference grant of rights is at the center of discussions. The grant of rights is somewhat common measure that conferences use to legally bind their member schools into a long-term commitment as a way to secure a media rights deal. A way to secure a better media rights deal. To bundle everybody's rights together gives you a little bit more leverage when it comes to potential media partners. Back to the article. The ACC agreed to its current deal with ESPN in 2016. Okay, now I'm going to skip the next paragraph because that's all recap. SEC, Big Ten, ACC. For a year now, Florida State officials have publicly lobbied threats of their eventual departure from the conference, with the school's own president, Richard McCullough, saying in August that Florida State needs to very seriously consider the move. In the same meeting, former Florida State quarterback Drew Weatherford, a member of the Board of Trustees, says, "It's not a matter if we leave, in my opinion. It's a matter of who and when we leave. The talks is perhaps turning into action." Florida State's college football playoff snub is not the only factor to have expedited the school's charted course toward an ACC exit. The latest realignment wave, the ACC gained Cal, Stanford, SMU, despite aggressive pushback within the conference. Florida State, North Carolina, Clemson voted against the additions. That's all recap. We're going to skip that. The ACC expansion campaign further divided a league of private and public programs that hold vastly different, desperate missions and resources. In the spring, officials from 7 ACC schools met multiple times to examine a way to potentially exit the conference, even studying dissolving the league entirely. Those discussions mostly died after they emerged publicly in May. However, Florida State's desire, and others as well, to break free of the league has been constant for many months. And that is a big part of this. It has been constant for months. That's why we've been on the story. That's why we did not let go of the story. Because we've been hearing, there's been leaks. We've been reporting to you. This is not an impulsive reaction to being left out of the playoffs by Florida State. Has it given them more energy? Has it involved more phone calls, more fundraising money? Yeah, sure. But this is not an impulsive move by Florida State, nor will it be by Clemson, nor will it be by North Carolina, nor will it be by a few other schools, potentially. This is not impulsive. This has been the plan. This is what we reported to you on December 26, 2022, March 31, 2023. We've had live shows on this. This is exactly what the Florida State Money Perch told us was going to happen. Florida State Money Perch told us last night about the new meeting being put on the website in the next 48 hours, and bam, it happened. This is not impulsive. You might think it's risky. You might think it's stupid. You might think it's dangerous. You might think Florida State is going down the wrong road. You might think Clemson has no landing spot and is going down the wrong road. But it's not impulsive. It's not a knee-jerk reaction. It's not. Back to the article. Florida State lawyers, as well as those from Clemson, have spent the last several months exploring ways to realistically break free of the grant of rights. While many consider the grant of rights unbreakable, some believe that the schools will try nonetheless to find an exit path. In other words, a settlement. Again, and there's going to be more to this Yahoo report and reporting, okay? But I'm letting you know here. Take this however you want to take it. Take this however you want to take it. There is not much space between Clemson and Florida State. And that's why we have them both at the center of the stage. Florida State lawyers, Clemson lawyers, multiple times, bringing people into the vault to look at the grant of rights that none of us have seen except for lawyers and representatives of the ACC, in which they cannot take a copy of, they cannot take a picture of, and bring it out, show it to the public. In signing the grant of rights, schools acquiesce the rights to televise their home games to the league and partner ESPN. Florida State's home competitions are owned not by the school, but by the league. Not by ESPN, but by the league over the next 13 years, if they don't find a way out of it. There is precedent for a settlement. This very year, the Big 12 and its TV partners agree to a settlement for Oklahoma and Texas to leave its grant of rights a year early for what is announced for $50 million penalty. If the ACC, I'm skipping a little bit, but if the ACC and ESPN did agree to any kind of settlement, breaking the grant of rights will come at a considerable cost, with estimates as much as $500 million. As much as $500 million. We believe a peek around the corner, it'd be $300, $400 million, with the $120 to $80 million in exit fee. I know many people disagree with us. Really good, smart people disagree with us. But we think to get the ACC to the bargaining table and to accept the deal, and all those ACC schools have to be satisfied, and ESPN, it's going to take hundreds of millions of dollars of Florida State. And that is why they're partnering with an equity firm. This is why they're doing it. Because they know it's going to take hundreds of millions of dollars to get out of the ACC, and they're willing to do it. It sounds like the equity partner is willing to invest in Florida State for them to do it. That would be in addition to the $120 million owed to the league and separate exit fee. It is no secret within college athletics that Florida State, as well as other ACC programs, have deeply explored obtaining future funding through private equity means. As far as exiting the ACC, schools must notify the conference of their departure at least a year before a move, before August 15th of 2024. Going back down to the bottom of the screen here, there is this question. Where would Florida State and any other departing ACC schools land? We're just going to get to that right now. The article, unfortunately, for some reason, I was not able to capture the image. But the article basically says, Ross Dellinger basically says that agreeing with ESPN, North Carolina, probably the top target of the SEC, but it questions maybe that Florida State and Clemson may not have interest from the Big Ten. I got to tell you. Incorrect. I'm sorry. Florida State does have interest from the Big Ten. Clemson does have interest from the Big Ten. They do. I don't know how else to say it. Yes, North Carolina is the top domino. North Carolina and Virginia obviously are the top value for the SEC when it comes to expanding the footprint. But the SEC and the Big Ten both have interest in Florida State and Clemson. For the SEC, it's about playing defense. For the Big Ten, it's about playing offense. So I apologize. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, I was not able to capture that image when the Yahoo Sports talked about it. But I can assure you, there is interest. Of course there is. And in the article, in the Yahoo Sports article, and I'll try to post it up here. I'll try to find it. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Hold on, everybody here. Let me see if I can find that part. No, I guess I can't. Well, anyways, they basically say the same thing as ESPN, but I can assure you there is heavy interest in Florida State. But again, the Big Ten is going to be cautious legally. They were cautious when it comes to the legal matters of Washington and Oregon, as we reported. We all let you know that they were very interested. Fox Sports was very interested in Washington and Oregon, but a bunch of things had to happen. Kevin Warren had to leave office. He did. The Big 12 was going to have to be successfully in cracking open the Pac-12 more than once, and they did. Oregon and Washington would have to come in as a discount, and they did. There are hurdles here when it comes to the Big Ten trying to expand with the Florida State and Clemson. It could be that the SEC eats first. We're going to have to figure out how this court's going to work, how this is going to work, how the settlement's going to work. We don't know. We're going to give you the best peek around the corner, but we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know how the judge is going to rule in some county in Tallahassee, Florida. We don't know how ESPN's going to respond. We're going to poke and prod on this, but it might be that the SEC eats first, and they might eat it all. At least the first four helpings. And then the Big Ten might eat, and then Florida State. Then the Big 12 might even eat. Look, let me get to this. Brett McMurphy's tweet. Let me get to Brett McMurphy's tweet real quick here. Florida State, starting process of leaving the ACC will have an Oppenheimer-like ripple effect throughout college landscape. Wow. Source told Action Network headquarters. As one of the biggest TV brands, Florida State could land in the Big Ten or the SEC, and if those aren't options, the Big 12, sources said. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to be honest with everybody here. Don't scoff at the Big 12 option. I don't believe, if I had to put my chips to the middle of the table, it's not going to be the Big 12, right, for Florida State. But don't scoff at it. Don't scoff at it. Because, first of all, Florida State and Clemson have been unbelievably active behind the scenes. None of this is impulsive. This has all been planned. This is why we kind of knew the first quarter 2024. So this is a plan, folks. They're going to leverage as much as they can, Florida State and Clemson and North Carolina. But I'm going to focus on Florida State and Clemson because I don't think North Carolina is where Florida State and Clemson is at, even though North Carolina is the biggest domino. Clemson and Florida State is going to leverage everything. They're going to play the leverage game continuously through the press, through leaks, possibly even through peek around the corner. And they're going to play the leverage game, including Big 12, talking to the Big 12 third parties. Of course they are. Of course they are. So don't scoff at that. The chances, I think, are pretty slim, But don't scoff at it. Now, SEC has their own internal political dynamics going on with the Florida Gators, with the South Carolina Gamecocks. 16-team league. They want to expand the footprint. So, of course, their top targets are North Carolina, Virginia. And they might just go after those two schools. Or it might be 4 schools, depending on the political landscape with North Carolina and Virginia Tech. And we've talked about that. We've been talking about it for days because we knew this was coming. So we had to talk about it. The new interim chancellor at North Carolina. There are big stories within this gigantic story that have yet to play out. So it could be, if the SEC is successful in their top targets, that Florida State will be there for the Big Ten, that Clemson will be there for the Big Ten. And then you have the internal discussions with the current media partners, or expanding with, let's say, an Amazon. And of course, you have the internal politics of the Big Ten, which we know we have that information precisely what it is. And that is this. We reported months ago, 4 months, that the Big Ten was going to expand west again before it was going to go east. And that's exactly what happened. And Ohio State acquiesced. Penn State acquiesced. Michigan, but mostly Ohio State and Penn State. They finally said, okay. Washington and Oregon, discount, got it. But we're calling the shots on the next expansion. So what is the incentive for Ohio State and Penn State to break into the Southeast? I think there's a whole hell of a lot of incentives for the Big Ten to go into virgin Big Ten territory with those demographics down in the South, with that media. But those demographics, and for Fox Sports and CBS and NBC, of course, the incentives all over the place. And of course, look at SEC's incentive to get into North Carolina, Virginia. My goodness, the demographics of those two states, the spending power of those two states in their demographics. It's all right there. It's all right there. So when Brett McMurphy says Florida State starting process of leaving the ACC will have an Oppenheimer, the atomic bomb, ripple effect throughout the college landscape, sources told Action Network, absolutely. Absolutely. And of course, we get down to the rules of realignment here at Peek Around the Corner. Before I take your comments in your phone calls, thank you for your patience on the long monologue once again. Before we get to your comments and phone calls, we're going to open up the phone lines. We go through our rules in realignment. Number 1, realignment never sleeps. In an early peak episode yesterday that we dropped for our early peak members, if you want to become an early peak member, hit the join button. We talked about what's going to happen in the first quarter 2024 in the G5 conferences. There's going to be a realignment happening first quarter 2024. Realignment never sleeps. So that's the number 1 rule. The number 2 rule is the school calls the conference first. The conference doesn't call the school first, and Clemson and Florida State and North Carolina have called everybody, okay? So the conferences, now the Big Ten, the SEC is going to be very careful with their communications. It's going to be mostly third party right now. And then the third rule in realignment here at Peek Around the Corner is relationships. Relationships, relationships, relationships. It is so vital. It's so vital. Trust, relationships. It took North Carolina has built a relationship through through third parties with the Big Ten for over a decade, 2 decades. But North Carolina's leadership, its core looks like it's changing, right? We talked about in the last couple of weeks, there is a battle going on for the soul, for the future of North Carolina, and it's SEC advantage. It just is. We went through it. If you've missed our live shows or episodes, go watch them. The interim chancellor, the UNC system president, the board of governors, the board slightly leans SEC. They've got the advantage. Mike Gusowich, a pro-silent Big Ten pro voice, is leaving January 12th. And then you look at Virginia and Virginia Tech. Wow. Wait till the reports come out on that. We're going to be doing live shows and episodes on that. They are entangled. Can Virginia dislodge themselves from Virginia Tech? So relationships matter. So let's get back to Clemson and Florida State. The relationship between Florida State and the SEC and ESPN could not be any icier. So, when this legal filing happens for Florida State, we got to keep an eye on, does Florida State, are they going to be able to create a certain path, a certain legal leverage, a certain pathway, in where they go into negotiations with the ACC, where they come out of that without the handcuffs still being put on the wrist? In other words, do they get out of the ACC? Do the Seminoles get out of the ACC with the ability to make a choice? Or are they able to get out of the ACC, but they are directed towards the SEC? That is the storyline that we're going to be keeping an eye on among all these storylines. Because if they are free to enter into negotiations with the Big Ten, it's going to happen. I don't care how many reports there are about the Big Ten. Before I get to comments and phone calls, I want to make it clear, just like I made it clear with Washington and Oregon. And you guys know I made that clear. I'm going to make this clear. If Florida State is free from not just the ACC, but they have the freedom to make a choice, they are Big Ten bound, not because Florida State might like the discount that they have to get into that they have to take to get to the Big Ten. But the Florida State is Big Ten bound because the Big Ten wants them. And I know you've already seen articles saying, well, the Big Ten, they haven't shown signs that they really want the Florida State. It's not really I'm telling you, Big Ten wants Florida State. Now, Florida State's going to have to come in as a discount. Florida State's going to have to be free of their grant of rights before the big boys talk at the big boy table. We've been accurately reporting to you on that for months. But if Florida State is there to free the choice, it's going to be Big Ten, and Big Ten's going to take them. I know the Monty Show has been dogging Florida State for months on their value. I know we've already seen articles on Florida State. Everybody's having a fun time at Florida State's expense. We at Peek Around the Corner, As much as we can tell you, if they are free to choose and if they want to take the deal that's in front of them from the Big Ten, Florida State Seminoles are Big Ten bound. I want to say more, but there are third-party communications that they've been going on. So Florida State knows. They know where the landscape is up until a certain point. Now, I got to get to your comments. I got to get to your phone calls. There is more to the story, but we've already done so much already. So we're going to get to your comments and phone calls. And of course, Notre Dame has a deal signed in 2029. We don't know what that deal looks like. We don't know the flexibility of that deal. We don't know if that deal could easily fold into a Big Ten contract. We don't know anything. Nothing has come out in public. But we're going to keep an eye on that as well. So, to your comments, to your phone calls, let's get to it. I apologize. I haven't gotten to the super chats in a while. John Teal, thank you so much. If my four went to the Big Ten, it would be the SEC East, North Carolina, North Carolina State, Virginia, Virginia Tech. Then the Big 12 takes Louisville, Pitt, Syracuse, UConn, or Duke, or maybe both. John Teal, thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate it. Again, there's no way on God's green earth Brett Yormark is going to undercut his own leverage. There's no way the Big 12 is in talks with the ACC when it comes to a merger. Why? Not now. Maybe later under the Big 12 umbrella, but not now. Doesn't make any sense. It does not make any sense at all. Big 12 Mafia, Nathan Brown, thank you so much. Becoming an early peak member. You are here, Knighted. Thank you so very much. And before we get to your phone calls, I know there's a lot of new people watching us all the time. Please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like the content. If you are liking the content, please smash the like button. If you don't like the content, hit the thumbs down button and let us know in the chat or on Twitter or on X. Let us know how we can improve your experience here at college football's peak around the corner. If you're interested, if you want that cloak and dagger, if you want that little bit of nugget of information early in the morning before we talk about it live, hit the join button. College football's early peak membership. Hit the join button. Thank you so much, Nathan Brown. Good friend of mine. Does a fantastic job on the Big 12 Mafia. They're going to have a very busy first quarter of 2024. Immaculate, Mo and Vision, Nathan Brown, Wild Ute. Go check them out. They're going to be very, very busy. So buckle up. Buckle up. Okay, let's get to your phone calls. 763 260 1333 763 260 1333. In the meantime, I'm going to get to as much of your comments as possible. I appreciate your patience. Thanks for clarifying, Greg. If Florida State and Clemson go to the Big Ten, then North Carolina, Virginia, Virginia Tech, and who go to the SEC? Well, we're not reporting that. Obviously, we're not reporting that. We're letting you know relationships matter. maybe the SEC insist on taking all 4, but then they're going to have to somehow separate North Carolina and Virginia from Virginia Tech and North Carolina State. So we're not reporting anything. We're just giving you the lay of the land.
Call from
Dan.
Dan, thanks for calling. The floor is yours. What do you got to say, good sir?
Hey, Greg, thanks for the great show as always. What do you think happens with Cal or Stanford if the ACC falls apart? Will the Big Ten consider those two again? The Big 12 point on this, do you think the Pittsburgh-Louisville situation maybe, and then maybe Georgia Tech, maybe Syracuse, or maybe Duke if that works out? And then also, would there be any chance for the Big 12 to incorporate Notre Dame in any of this for scheduling agreements? I'll get off the phone and listen. Thanks again, Greg, for the great comment. Have a great information. Have a good day.
Beautiful, 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 beautiful call. A lot of questions. Unfortunately, I did not write them all down, so I'm going to have to have people in the chat help me out here. First question was in regards to California, Stanford. I don't think that's happening. We never thought it was going to happen with California here at Peek Around the Corner. I know there was college football reporters claiming that they were a candidate. We never got that information. We could never get that information. Stanford, yes. When I was interviewed by the Los Angeles Times 4 different times in an article that they wrote about us, I talked about Stanford and Notre Dame. I talked about Notre Dame greasing the skids for Stanford. When Notre Dame did not pop for the Big Ten, that left Stanford out there, and I think it's going to be very difficult for Stanford and California to become Big Ten universities in the future. I don't think, and again, I don't know if I'm in the minority, and it might be a 50-50 split, but I don't think the ACC is going to totally implode. Hold on one second.
call from
Greg.
Greg, can you hold on a second, sir?
Yep.
I appreciate it. I don't think the ACC is going to go away. I don't think they're going to disintegrate. I think it's going to implode. But I don't think it's going away. They've already backfilled with California, Stanford, and SMU. Phillips has already said in interviews using untraditional language in describing his conference and possibly dealing with the next realignment. He says ACC has built the fortress. In other words, they have backfilled, and they're ready to backfill again. You remember they got the ACC network, a network that ESPN has invested millions of dollars in, a network that each ACC school they've invested their own money internally into the campus to get the ACC network up and running. So I don't think the ACC network is going away. I think it's going to remain. I think the long play here for the ACC schools that do not have a landing spot is to secure their future. Unlike what Oregon State and Washington State did when it comes to making sure they remain an autonomous school, I think these ACC schools are going to try to secure their future. So I think there is a pathway for negotiations, for a settlement for Florida State, North Carolina, Clemson, and possible a few others. And I think Phillips thinks that as well. Your other questions, the only other one I can remember, and I apologize, I should have been writing it down. The Big 12, what scraps are they going to get? I think they're going to get really good scraps. I think that potentially they're going to get really good value-added additions if things go the way I think they're going to go. That's why I don't think Brett Yormark is in any merger talks. Why would he be? He's got he occupies the highland over the Big 12 right now. I mean, over the ACC right now. So you got to remember something here. One of the great things about one of the things Brett Yormark realized is we have to go west before we go east. Just like the Big Ten, by the way. We said the Big Ten was going to go west again, even after UCLA and USC before they get east. Brett Yormark, one of his media partners is Fox. Fox wants more and more and more and more Eastern content, East Coast content. They want it from the Big Ten, and they want it from the Big 12. So Brett Yormark's eyes are focused on the East, not in Washington State and Oregon State, not in the merger. They want to be able to take what they can get when the other two conferences have eaten first. Hopefully I've answered most of your questions. I apologize if I did not get to them all. I should have been taking notes. Greg, the floor is yours. Thanks for calling, sir.
Yeah, Greg, I completely love everything you're talking about. I think people are forgetting the most recent, the Pac-12 court battle. And I think with this Florida State thing, they're going to get obviously a very friendly judge. But I think there's some underlying political stuff, and obviously we love your show because you don't get into it. But the reality is our Florida governor and the ESPN Disney war is real. And so having Florida senators, Florida congressmen, having a governor, and everybody using their friendly influence, if you will push, I think, judges to move this a little faster. And I think it's going to be settled faster than I think people think, because I don't think ESPN and the ACC want a long, drawn-out battle that could get even uglier for them potentially. And so I honestly see this thing not costing – I think you're closer to the right number. I think $300 million sounds like a lot of money in this day and age. It's really not, but I think that's definitely on the high end just because of the political climate, the court cases, where everything stands these days.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point, a point that I kind of try to stay away from because I think there's other points that I can make that illustrates the same point that you're making. But I'm going to expand your discussion a little bit. Everything you said about Florida State, the relationship with Disney, governor, and all that, that's correct. It's another reason we've been told why, that there isn't much space between Florida State and Clemson in regards to the South Carolina political landscape. Their governor, their immunity laws are very strong in South Carolina. I'm not a lawyer. I don't understand. But what I've been told by people that I trust, Clemson might use the same tools as Florida State in protecting the university from being sued by the ACC. I also want to say this. When we talk about North Carolina not being aligned, their board, their current leadership, which is about to leave on January 12th. Bubba Cunningham was just on a program 2 days ago, and I apologize. I can't remember the name of the program, but it's out there in Carolina. It's on a YouTube channel. Basically, Bubba Cunningham said, look, we don't really want to leave. He was very passive in his statements. The same program had the governor. I believe his name is Cooper, governor of North Carolina. And boy, he was saying, I don't want to see North Carolina and North Carolina State separate. I don't think it's going to happen years from now. In other words, even politically, when it comes to the state governments of South Carolina and Florida State, they are more aggressive in, let's just call it, inside the Holy Smokes Theater than the state of North Carolina. So that's why those two are out ahead. Another example of why those two are out ahead. And when you have that type of backing from your local or state government, then you can be more aggressive, right? In your legal filings. You're going to have support, right? So.
Well, and the other thing that I think obviously this is football driven, but I think ESPN's going to have to look and make a business decision. And I think when the ACC, whatever teams leave or even whatever's left, I think ESPN may end up having to do more of a pivot. And this is where I think the Big 12 and Brett Yormark, I think he's a genius. You get all the big basketball brands. We've seen what ESPN's willing to pay for the NBA. We all know that college basketball, although it doesn't make as much money as football, it still makes a lot of money, especially after Christmas. And I think you might see ESPN help facilitate something like that and help I guess, dissolve their own conference and maybe
Yeah.
transition business-wise.
I agree. We all know that Brett Yormark is planning on decoupling the football content and the basketball content when he goes into the next media negotiations at the end of this decade. I think Brett Yormark, and I've been saying this for months, I don't think he's going to. I don't think he's going to mess with Big Ten. I'm sorry. I don't think Yormark is going to mess with Big 12 slot number 17, slot number 18, slot number 19, slot number 20 when it comes to full-time members until he finds out what happens in the ACC. I don't think Brett Yormark has had any interest in Oregon State, Washington State, or anything else, or a merger. He's waiting to see what happens with the ACC implosion. He's waiting to see how he can gain more value with his current media partners, the Big 12 and Fox and ESPN. So Brett Yormark is waiting, and he's going to be ready to act when the time comes.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, thanks for everything. Keep up the great work, and
You got it.
have
Appreciate it.
a happy holidays.
You too. Happy holidays. Thank you, sir.
Call from
BJ.
BJ, can you hold on 1 second, sir?
Sure.
I appreciate it. We got a super chat, Carson. Greg, is there a team in the Holy Smokes Theater no one is talking about? Is anyone in the lobby getting popcorn? I don't think so. I do not think so. Clemson and Florida State have the center of the stage. North Carolina's in the first row. They'd be at the center of the stage, but they're not aligned, as we've talked about. And the rest of the Magnificent Seven schools are sitting in the next 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 rows. I don't believe anybody else is in the lobby outside of the Magnificent Seven at this point. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you for your generosity, Carson. Appreciate it very much. BJ, the floor is yours. What do you got to say, good sir?
I think first off, thanks for having me on. I just have a few comments, and it's counter to kind of what you guys have been talking about. But as it pertains to like the ACC and the Big 12, there's a way fans look at it, and then there's a way that kind of businessmen look at it, right?
Yep.
You know, for anybody ESPN owns pretty much the ACC network. They've invested 15 years of showing the ACC network. Fox's deal is kind of a hybrid deal. $20 million per team per year. $20 million is ESPN. $10 million is Fox, and it was broken down to $10 million is basically basketball. Fox, Big 12 basketball is pretty much on Fox.
Yes.
Their football is on the ESPN Plus. So what I'm thinking is this: ESPN has invested all this money into their network. Just like how ESPN did the Pac-12 by not offering them any money or any respectable money, it forced teams to go elsewhere. The fact that ESPN owns all of the ACC network and 2/3 of the Big Ten network, they're the power players. If they don't want the Big 12 to exist, we just are not going to offer them a legit amount of money. If they want the ACC to disappear, they just will offer the Big 10 or the Big 12, amount of money that force teams from the ACC to the Big 12. I think all the conjecture about which league is this, that, and the third, it's ESPN. And I think ESPN is an East Coast brand. They want an East Coast presence. And so my opinion is that ESPN would decide what happens to the the second tier of our colleges, either ACC and the Big 12, will be determined by which league ESPN wants to pay.
You know what? This is a great phone call. You bring up unbelievable great points, and you're absolutely correct. And you could be absolutely correct about everything. When I say the Big 12 has the higher ground right now, the slightly higher ground, one of the biggest point of advantage for the ACC is the ACC network. Like you said, ESPN invested millions of dollars. They're the sugar daddy for that. They've invested in that. They did not invest in the Big 12 network. The Big 12 network at ESPN Plus is not a conference network. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. but it is not. The success of the ESPN Plus Big 12 now is not tied to the number of subscriptions or views or whatever. The ACC network is. The better the ACC network does, the better the ACC schools, that are under the ACC network. So that is one big point towards the ACC. The reason why I think the high point that Brett Yormark has the high point right now in this, even though the ACC network is an advantage for the ACC schools over the Big 12 now, is, of course, this insecurity, right? The ACC looks like it's going to implode. It's going to lose some of its big brands, right?
Yep.
And I think there is a way for that ACC network to just get a paint job, to just get the Big 12 schools to invest in money that they were going to have to do internally to incorporate that network. And I think the Big 12, once the ACC schools lose some of the big brands, I think the inertia, I think the Big 12 is going to be able to lure, if they get enough ESPN support, a lot of it's ESPN, but some of it is Big 12, to lure Louisville and Pittsburgh, and it's going to be easier for the Big 12 to poach than the ACC is going to poach from the Big 12.
I agree. And I'll just say this too, is that I think what the Big 12 has, they have two things to their advantage. They're in a marriage where both people or everybody's happy. People in the teams in the Big 12 are happy to be in the Big 12, whereas the ACC is in a marriage that neither one likes each other. Nobody wants to be there, right? So the continuity in the Big 12 is a selling point.
Yeah.
And I think that Yormark is running an organization like a professional organization, whereas Phillips is running the organization like a college entity.
Yes, sir.
And Yormark is running the league how it will be in the future. So they have an amazing commissioner. He's amazing.
Yeah.
And he'll have to pull some rabbits out of his hat, but I'm not going to doubt him because he's done great so far.
Yeah,
but I don't want to take up too much of your time.
Thank you for the time. Great phone call, man. Great. Please call again, sir.
Will do. You guys have a blessed one.
You too. God bless. Thank you. Great phone call. And BJ nails it. Brett Yormark, even if everything goes his way here, and I think it is, but he's still going to have to pull the rabbit out of the hat. It ain't going to be easy. It is not going to be easy for the Big 12 to eat off the ACC's table after an implosion. BJ's right. But again, the third rule in realignment is relationships, and Brett Yormark has a great relationship with the Fox and ESPN. He knows how to play the leverage game. He just knows. I think if Brett Yormark, if an implosion happens, but we got a long road to go here, guys. This story, Brett McMurphy's correct. This tweet is correct. Florida State starting the process of leaving the ACC will have an Oppenheimer-like ripple effect. Oppenheimer-like ripple effect. I should have titled the show that, but YouTube probably would have, deleted the show if I titled that. But anyways, Brett Yormark, if things go the way we think it's going, if he can pull the rabbit out of the hat like BJ just said, think about the potentiality of taking the possible reality that at some point, maybe a long shot now, but maybe the Big 12 can have its own conference network. We shall see. But anyways, phone lines are open, 763-260-1333. Again, if you're new to the channel, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you get yourself notified. We can come on live at any time. We had a late night live show last night. We had to do it. We had breaking news. We broke it to the PATC community that in the next 48 hours, a meeting was going to be posted. A new Board of Trustees meeting was going to be posted on their website. We broke it last night, and it happened today, this morning. So stick with us here at Peek Around the Corner. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe.
Call from
Immaculate.
Mr. Hot Guy is in the house. The floor is yours. What's going on, sir? What are you thinking?
Well, here we are.
Yeah.
Way sooner than we thought.
Well, not 10 days sooner than I thought. Possible.
Well, I mean, we were talking kind of January, maybe late January. I know you had a little bit broader timeline. I just thought that they would wait till after, the CFP and all that.
Yeah.
But hey, when someone hands you a whole bunch of free momentum, you take that.
Yeah.
I don't think they would have wanted to do it right before Christmas, but
Well, they haven't done anything yet. So wait. I mean,
the start though.
Yeah,
to start the process, to have the public meeting.
yeah, I wouldn't call that. I'm only officially taking the L, Immaculate. I'm only officially taking the L if they produce a legal document, filing a legal document. A meeting tomorrow is not the stake in the ground. But it sounds like they might do it tomorrow, Immaculate. It sounds like they might even do it. So then I'll take the L. But 360 days ago, we said first quarter 2024. It might happen 10 days early. And if it does, we're going to take the L here, unfortunately. But anyways, floor is yours. I won't interrupt again.
Good. It takes a lot to build up inertia, to get yourself going from the point. And when someone decides to give you a big shove, you keep it going. And so that's what I think's happening here. And so now if they were to have a board meeting with all of this, everything going on, and then do nothing, it would fizzle out. Like that would be a terrible move. So no, I am fully expecting this to be one heck of a popcorn-worthy show tomorrow. Remember the last time we had, I don't know how many countless number of sports media on Twitter giving play-by-plays of what trustees were talking about. Like I've never seen anything like it before, and I think we're about to get it again, even more so.
Yeah. So thanks for the reminder. We're going to be going live about 9:45 Eastern Time, 8:45 Central Time tomorrow morning. We're going to be on live. We're going to be keeping an eye on the Board of Trustees meeting that's going to be in public. We'll provide a link to the meeting. We're not going to show the meeting on our screen. I don't want to get in trouble, but we're going to be covering it. Everybody's head has got to be on a swivel. We're going to be reporting what X is saying. You all are going to be reporting to us about what you're seeing and putting it in the chat, giving us phone calls. Tomorrow is going to be popcorn ready. That's why on the title screen, look, popcorn emergency shipment is coming in right now into the Holy Smokes Theater. It's for tomorrow morning, as Immaculate just said. Popcorn emergency shipment. Holy smokes. Sorry, Immaculate. Go ahead.
No, you're good. Yeah, I was just going to point out how pretty much everything that's been going on in this stage of realignment, consolidation as we call it, has been happening more quickly than anticipated. And I think that starts with what you were saying going back in the day with Colorado. What I'm about to say might trigger some folks, but I actually do believe that Deion Sanders played a big part in this. I believe when he signed on there, he wanted Texas recruiting, and he didn't want to be seen on Apple for 3 years. And then they went all in with him, and they decided to pull the trigger much sooner than what everyone in the industry thought. And that really kind of set us down this path of everything happening sooner rather than later. And I think we're still seeing that now. The breakup of the pack, I think it happened at least 3 years sooner than it was supposed to, supposed to in quotes. And now we're seeing the same thing with the CFP. This was another unknown that has come in, their decision. No one could have foreseen this happening in this regard, but that decision has it's sped up the process. And, it kind of makes you think something is going to just continue to happen in these regards to make things happen sooner than we think. And that's the one truth that is going on in this consolidation round is it's hard to predict when things are going to happen. And if anything, usually it happens later than what you think. But now it's happening sooner, which is a little disconcerting. I mean, as someone who follows this very closely and is very excited right now, it's also, I don't know, not frustrating, but just disconcerting that things are happening so quickly, with all the NCAA lawsuits. That's going to affect things. What's the ACC going to come in the future? We've talked about it. I've talked about it. Now's not the time yet to really go into that, but I think that's going to shock the hell out of people what they actually pull off there. And some of the schools that might go to the Big 12, I think that might be shocking to people. And I think that there might be more cooperation going on behind the scenes of this than anyone might even realize. Just we'll see how that goes. But tomorrow is really, truly the day I think that we've been waiting for, just when this starts to get kicked off. Now, maybe the filing that they're going to do, maybe this doesn't get them very far. But I think they're past the point of no return.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about that, but I think that this is a actual sign, like one way or another, this is going to happen. And if they don't get it this way, they've got, the way that I don't think anyone wants to truly happen is private equity get involved. I
think they're definitely going to get involved.
I mean, as little as possible.
I think that's a fait accompli.
I think that there could be some serious unintended consequences that come from that. I agree with you that it probably to some degree it does, but just people need to beware when that comes in. Remember, those funds, those groups, they have a say in things.
Yeah.
And you may not like all the things that they say has to happen in order for them to get their returns on their investment, so to speak. So we'll see how it goes, good, bad, however it runs. We're on that path now. And last thing, I really do appreciate your call out for us over on the show. I know we all have a great amount of respect for you. You're kind of the godfather. I know me personally, I wouldn't be doing much of this if it wasn't for your show. So I love seeing new folks get involved. I'm always seeing in chat, like people call in, be heard with Greg. It's a lot of fun, and you never know. Everyone's got a different perspective that goes into the whole. So very appreciative. I do know, I think we might be doing a live on Twitter after this whenever you decide to wrap up.
Beautiful.
Would love it if you stop by, or anyone else wants to stop by and just kind of chat about this in an open forum. So really looking forward to it. And me and Moen, we're doing a late show tonight, I think.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Once again, we're gonna go late. I think you did it. That was great last night, by the way.
That was forced upon us. We had to do it because we had the information, right? And if we didn't put it out, I didn't want to do just a simple tweet or whatever. We broke the news last night that something was dropping, today or tomorrow on the website of. We knew that there was going to be a Zoom meeting early this morning, and there was at Florida State. We had the information. We had to drop it. We wanted to make sure. And then, of course, we dissected the Pete Them article, and I think that's an underrated article because of the fact that they named the equity firm, the equity partner, Sixth Street. Yeah. And I think that is so important because Immaculate, Pete Thamel would not have put that in the article if things weren't on the track and the train was on the track and it's going down the hill. And I think that partnership, I think for it to get to this point, because we know that this has been going on for months, for it to get to that point, I think there's an anticipation. The equity partner knows what this is going to cost Florida State. I think they've worked out so many things. And yeah, it's risky for Florida State. But I think they've worked this out to where this is as far as we can go when it comes to settlement with the ACC. I believe, I think we know, peek around the corner, that Clemson has done the same thing. And they've done all the work on it. And now it's time for Florida State to lead the charge, to be the spear. And we'll see what happens tomorrow. We'll see about this legal filing. And there's things, of course, we can't predict, Immaculate. Like, what judge gets this, right? What favorable judge gets this case? What
are unknown.
Right? We don't know. So we'll find out together.
Yeah, I think Florida State was forced to be the vanguard in this by Notre Dame deciding to extend their TV deal with NBC. That was,
yes, sir.
People didn't, but that was the announcement of like, nope, this one's on you.
Yes,
we're
sir.
not. I think everyone was looking like if Notre Dame was going to pull out first, then everyone can follow that.
Yes,
but
that's exactly what happened.
So now it's on State, and that it's an ongoing drama of sorts, and to be mindful of folks. There's a lot of people who are affected, by this emotionally, and it's very tough and trying. So hopefully no one thinks that the excitement that they hear is excitement for their pain or whatever. It's just we have to go through this in order to get to the end and hopefully to be in a much better place. And I know there's a lot of fear tactics out there about this happening or that happening or all these schools separating. I personally don't believe in all of that. I just think that's a mechanism to make things happen. So we'll see. Really looking forward to all this. And
all right.
I think we're going to have a lot
Appreciate
to talk about in the future. Have a great day.
Thank you, sir. Great call. Great call. Immaculate Mr. Hawkeye Opie, thank you for your incredible generosity to this channel once again. Opie, is it me or is there a lot of bunnies and rabbit holes in the PATC yard? Tread carefully, friends, especially if you see Bugs Bunny. Yeah, I do say the word rabbit hole a lot. I mean, I got about 16 phrases that I say over and over and over again. And basically, if you eliminate those 16 phrases, I don't say a whole heck of a lot on this channel. So, I say, very, very good comment, Opie. I appreciate your generosity to this, once again, to this channel. Thank you so much, sir. Very kind of you. Rabbit holes. Watch for the rabbit holes. And I'm trying to avoid them. I don't want to go deep into them. There's so many of them. Okay. A lot of great comments here. Let me Huffer Billy Paul. I like Clemson's plan. They're going to drive the hammer right behind Florida State. Huffer Billy Paul, Clemson Tiger in the house. Thanks for coming on in. This is what we've been reporting on. Last couple months, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, we put Clemson at the center of the stage with Florida State. You can see it. You can see it right there. Well, that's when Clemson was at the edge of the stage. They are at the center of the stage, just like where Colorado was for months alone. But Florida State is not alone. We have reasons to believe. We did a live show about 4 nights ago. Clemson is active. This has all been leaking. There is not much space between Florida State and Clemson. There is a difference. There is a difference in how they go about their business when it comes to the board of trustees. Different type of characters, different type of... Clemson is button up. They do things... Florida State is different. But other than that, there's not much space in between the two schools when it comes to their plans. And again, I was pretty direct early in the show about saying that Florida State has taken a lot of work, so has Clemson, in knowing where they stand. Third-party talks, indirect talks, knowing where they stand with potential future new media partners. They know where the valuation stands. They know that they're probably going to have to take an indirect
Call from
Attorney Dave.
Attorney Dave, can you hold on 1 second, sir?
Yes, sir.
I'm glad you called, though. I'm glad you called. I need help, Attorney Dave. I need help. Anyways, where was I? Oh, I was pretty direct early in the show here, okay? And I'm going to be direct again. They both Florida State and Clemson, they know. They're basic. There's interest. They are coveted. If things go the way they could go, they're hoping they go. This is not a case of Florida State and Clemson being told that there's not interest from the Big Ten, for example. There is going to be. The big boys haven't gotten to the table yet. Big Ten is not going to do that until Florida State and Clemson is cleared of the grant of rights. But Florida State and Clemson knows when they're weighing the risk benefit, when they're doing the risk benefit analysis, they've had to figure out the lay of the land. And the lay of the land came back positive to them, at least positive enough for them to get in a partnership with a private equity firm, positive enough for them to about to pull the trigger on a legal filing that hopefully Attorney Dave can teach us all. There's enough there. There's enough traction, enough inertia, enough positivity for Clemson to follow behind Florida State when it comes to the SEC in the Big Ten's interest. That's as direct as I can put it. Attorney Dave, help me out here. I'm starting to sound like a fake lawyer that I am. The floor is yours.
How you doing today, Greg?
I'm doing good. I'm hopped up on sugar. What am I? Coke Zero. What is this? This is that cherry. Anyways, I'm hopped up on Coca-Cola. The floor is yours.
Hey, there are worse things you could be hopped up on right now. So
Yes.
if you got some Coke Zero, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about, and then I'll give you some thoughts. But so this private equity situation with Sixth Street, has anybody explained to you or given you hints about how this would work? I know the Samuel article really didn't get into it, but with Florida State University having its athletic association, which I think they have a pretty a different setup than maybe some of the other state universities in the state of Florida. Like the University of Florida has a completely separate entity right now in the University Athletic Association. So does UCF, USF, and I think Florida State doesn't for some reason. How would a private equity firm, which is used to dealing with private entities?
I thought Florida State's athletic department was separate. Just like
they have FSU boosters, and they may have formed an entity, and it may be a different entity because they do have that. So they have that right under Florida statute to have a separate entity that is quasi-governmental though. So it's still quasi-governmental. There's still aspects of it that are under the control basically of the university. How would a private equity firm, has anybody explained to you how they would come in and provide them liquidity to then pay off whatever they're going to have to pay off and then pay them back over time? It can't be ownership interest because they are one way or another, they're a non-for-profit organization. So they would have to either form some for-profit aspect or it would just have to be debt that they're paying back. Has anybody explained how that would work to you?
Not in any level of detail. I don't think there'd be an ownership type of thing. I think it would be like a contractual, like separate contracts. From anything from a T-shirt being sold to a ticket being sold, some of that would go back to the private equity. right?
So they would take so because I just think it's really interesting. It's just that it's confusing because they are a not-for-profit entity if they do have a separate entity right now. Yet then they would be selling off what would be their gross future profits.
Yes,
to
that's how I understand it. But then again, I'm a fake lawyer, so but yes, I understand.
Well, this yeah, I mean it's interesting because I mean even like tax implications and things. It gets into some really interesting territory.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be interested. Let me in your contacts in the Big Ten, how would they feel about a school like Florida State, which has like a endowment of like $800 million in comparison to some of the larger endowments you see in the Big Ten or some of the other schools? I mean, I think Northwestern has an endowment, for example, somewhere around like $15 billion, right?
Yeah.
How would they feel about a school like Florida State? Basically, I mean, the money we're talking about, we've talked about like a range of somewhere between $300 million they'd have to be getting on the low end, up to what could be, getting up towards basically what their whole university is worth as an academic institution currently, in more that $750 million range. That would be like the high end that I've heard. How would there be any from the more of the academic side of things? Some questions about, okay, so you've sold off your future revenues for your nonprofit organization to a private equity firm that you necessarily, there could be unintended consequences, as Immaculate was saying. It feels very non-academic, we'll say. Has there been, especially in some of the more hoity-toity, sophisticated circles that would be the Big Ten and its academic leadership, have you heard like have they had any response? Just kind of just like in passing, just like how does this impact the future of college sports, and would they be hesitant about such a situation for a school like Florida State?
First of all, I'm never invited to the hoity-toity parts of the Big Ten. I'm just a fat guy from Minnesota.
Hey, but your contacts, if they're given enough money and they're on that money,
yes,
they certainly
I know. Yeah, it's there's quite a contrast between myself and who I talk to. But no, I haven't. That's a great question, and I'm going to bring it up. That's a great question. But I will say, first of all, I was under the illusion or under the perception that the ACC, the Florida State Athletic Department, was like the University of Florida's, University of South Florida, and where the athletic department have separated themselves, so to speak.
They may have recently. They kind of had they weren't in the past, but they had an entity called Seminole Boosters that was separate in some ways, but that the athletic department was more intertwined officially, or another. It's kind of just like that's what I could put it as a shell game of sorts anyway. Like if they're separate, they're still under the authority both of the university and under the authority. But the reason they can do this situation is because of the state statute that's provided to them by the Florida legislature to have that authority.
Now, in regards, how would the Big Ten feel about it, and the hoity-toity in the Big Ten institutions? I don't know. I'm going to ask the question, but the Big Ten themselves. By the way, the Big Ten has a vault full of cash. They're not a. There's reports of the Pac-12 and when they imploded, they had about $50 to $7 million in their vault, and they used all that money to pay off whatever lawsuits at the time that was going on. The Big Ten's vault is, about 8 times bigger than that. Big Ten is sitting on a load of cash. Now they themselves, the Big Ten, has been sort of, kind of playing the part of a private equity firm, kind of with Maryland and Rutgers. Although
they're kind of playing the role of like a bank, basically.
Yeah.
They gave them some money, and they're giving them they're basically giving them like a very low interest loan to deal with some of these things, right?
Yeah. So, like if Florida State, they file this legal file, whatever, and they get in front of a favorable judge, and the favorable judge kind of makes a proclamation saying, yeah, well, there's a lot of, you got a lot of good points here, and you can go ahead, and I think you can make an argument. You can explain that better, Attorney Dave, how that would go. But let's say somehow down the road that Florida State gets a settlement with Florida State. I'm sorry, Florida State gets a settlement with the ACC. They owe a lot of money, incentive for the ACC schools, the conference, and possibly ESPN. I don't know, maybe the Big Ten plays a part in being the bank for Florida State and a possible Clemson. Maybe not taking the total placement of a private equity firm, but kind of playing a bank. That could be part of this as well. You're not right now. Big Ten's not having those type of talks, but I mean down the road a bit.
Yeah, that would be interesting, because you're basically saying then that the Big Ten would give money to Florida State to then pay the ACC after they were given membership in the Big Ten, if that were to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you this then. So you're mentioning this deck action. I think that the deck action that they're taking, I mean, it's basically to put all, they're using it, one, like you said, to speed up the process, because it's hard to breach the grant of rights other than just leaving. So you'll never find out whether the grant of rights is enforceable unless you either breach the grant of rights, forcing the hand of the ACC to then file a lawsuit against you, or you affirmatively take this deck action, asking a judge to assess whether the contract is enforceable. And so their argument, so they don't need to necessarily breach to get there. They're just saying, hey, we don't think this is enforceable, so we want you to make a determination. So it opens up a lawsuit that is just like any other lawsuit. And we talked about that a little bit last night. I saw you had mentioned on Twitter a little bit about, or on X a little bit about, that this contract, the grant of rights, is between Florida State University and the members of the ACC and the ACC itself. So it's not with ESPN, ABC, ultimately the Disney Corporation.
Mm-hmm.
But the grant of rights itself, those contracts, are to ensure that the ACC doesn't breach with Disney. That's why the grant of rights exists, is
Yes,
so that
sir.
the ACC itself doesn't breach with Disney.
Sure. Yep.
So for that type of situation, although Disney would not be a party, ultimately, and I mean, they have a huge interest in the results of this and kind of what happens if the ACC is. Well, let me ask you: have you seen? And I mean, have you heard that there is this like threshold, basically, that the ACC has to retain a certain number of schools, or there is some sort of ability for ESPN to get out of its contract currently with the ACC? Is that something that you've heard actually exists?
Yes, it actually exists, and the number is 50. Yes, it exists, and I think the number is 15, which would include Notre Dame in the number. So
to me,
but see, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, good.
I think it exists, but it's not going to happen. Like, it exists, but it isn't how do I put this? The ACC backfield with California, Stanford, and SMU in anticipation of what's about to happen. But they did it now, not because they need to do it now because they might go below 15. They did it now because they wanted to choose who, they wanted the best options now. Like, they took California, Stanford, and took SMU and the great money they gave them. But it isn't like they're going to drop below 15. It isn't like let's say, magically, it's not going to happen. I'm not reporting it. But let's say magically in the next 2 days, let's say we need four ACC schools say, we're out of here, we're gone, bye, we're going to the SEC, bye. Suddenly the ACC membership's at 14 schools. ESPN gets to we negotiate the deal because the number's under 15. The number's never going to drop under 15. You know what I'm saying?
Is there any quality component to that? I mean, could they?
Now that is
from
where
what you heard, just add.
Okay.
Could they just go add Georgia Southern and call it a day and make sure they added half of the Sun Belt?
See, that is the point of contention. That there has to be something in that deal that makes it so ESPN can renegotiate depending on the members. That has to be in there. The number's the number's not going to drop below 15, but the value might drop to the point where ESPN says, hold on a second, we got to renegotiate this deal. What I will say is incorrect from people out there is saying, if that happens, at that certain point, the grant of rights is null and void in Florida State and everybody can leave on their own. The grant of rights still exists even in that point if that should happen. What I've been told.
The grant of rights is independent of the ESPN deal. It's only to ensure that the ACC won't breach its deal with Disney at that point. So they're completely independent in that respect. It's just that if FSU finds a way out of the grant of rights and Clemson finds a way out of the grant of rights, then really it's on ESPN. I guess that's like what I keep coming back to, and I'm thinking through this whole situation, is this ultimately ends up with what does ESPN tell the ACC? Because the ACC is going to have communication with ESPN, with Disney generally at this point. And if there is a deck action that's filed by Florida State University in court, and they're about to go through this process, they're going to consult with ESPN. ESPN's going to either tell them, hey, man, we're going to figure this thing out. We stand behind y'all 100%. We're going to make sure that this thing stays together. Or ESPN's going to be like, we hope for the best here. Can't make any promises. Yeah. In the former, right, ESPN has a lot of sway to kind of figure this thing out. That's why you keep talking about why the SEC will get to eat first if they continue their relationship with ESPN and ABC, is because of the fact that ultimately ESPN has a lot of sway over whether they would call breach on their part of the agreement if there were to be a change in the composition of the conference. But then the other side of it is, if ESPN, like some people are sort of hinting at, maybe ESPN would want out of be involved in the ACC, or you would have, poaching by the Big 12. To me, then that ends up in a situation where if I'm the ACC, if I'm Jim Phillips at least, I mean, this is bet the farm type litigation. This isn't just like your run of the mill type litigation. This is everything is on the line. Yeah. And if everything is on the line, this thing will get messy very quickly because if you've ever seen where like a company's existence is truly in determination, depending upon how a lawsuit were to go down, they're going to throw everything they have up against the wall. So I'll say this. For all the folks who want this thing to happen very quickly, generally, FSU's done this because they want to try to force the ACC's hand and settle something and get this thing done and figure out whatever they're trying to do with the private equity or use the private equity. It's kind of a weird thing because they use the private equity, but you also then are like, well, you guys can pay more because you just get more private equity. So it's not an issue of whether you have the money to do this. Ultimately, they can. I'll tell you this, everybody wants this thing to be done quick or whatever that the folks want. Depending upon what that answer from ESPN, from those folks is, if it's a, well, we'll see how it goes type thing, this thing ain't going to be done for a while. And it's going to be a messy process that is going to upset a lot of people in college sports in a time where college sports is in a very difficult situation, in flux with Congress, in flux with what's going on around with NIL and with these antitrust lawsuits. And this is the type of situation that could get out of control very, very quickly. And I hope, I know that FSU thinks they're in an existential crisis, but I'm telling you, it ain't going to be good for college sports if this thing goes to where it could go. And it could end up in a situation where a lot of folks regret taking this action if it goes the way that it could with the ACC feeling like they need to this. So I'll leave you at that.
All right.
And unless you get anything else.
No,
Hope
that's
all is well,
good.
Greg. Thank
Attorney
you, sir.
Dave, appreciate it. Great call, Attorney Dave. Fantastic. Attorney Dave brings up a lot of great points. Once again, of course, he's our PATC attorney. Right. We're going to be watching. Tomorrow, we're not going to be just watching Florida State's, if they actually do the official legal filing. We're going to be watching their comments, the Board of Trustees, Peter Collins, the chairman of the board. We're going to be watching all that. But we're also going to be watching the reaction. The reaction from Jim Phillips. The reaction from the other ACC institutions. Any comment or private or leaked information from Clemson. Same thing with North Carolina. Same thing with Miami of Florida. Same thing with Virginia. Same thing with North Carolina State. Same thing with Virginia Tech. Same thing with Boston College and Wake Forest. But we're also going to be watching any type of response from ESPN. Because you can see the battle lines being drawn. You can sort of anticipate what Florida State's now going to do. You can kind of possibly figure out the response of the ACC, Jim Phillips. But what is ESPN's response? Are they going to play the heavy hand, the invisible hand, or no hand at all when it comes to this process, to the legal process, and to try to figure out a settlement? I don't know, but we're going to find out together.
Call from
Nathan Brown.
Nathan Brown, Big 12 rival, the man, the myth, the legend. Holy smokes, the floor is yours.
What a great time it is to be alive, Greg.
Yes, it is.
First of all, of course, tip of the hat, great show. You are the godfather, as Immaculate said earlier. You've let out for a lot of people like me and us into the industry, and I just want you to know I'm always cognizant of that and want to thank you for that effort.
Appreciate the kind words, sir.
So a couple things. First of all, I want to caution everybody that while we're talking realignment is fun and exciting, there is a downside that people need to. There's going to be a lot of people holding hats that don't have seats on the bus. Oregon State and Washington State are not going to be the last schools that are left for dead. And it's a painful time. So I would caution everybody, well, it's fun and exciting to talk about this stuff. There are people with lives and jobs that are going to be highly impacted by this.
Yep, communities will be highly impacted. Absolutely. Yep.
The second thing I'd like to tell everybody and remind, I should say, is that realignment never sleeps. We've said that many times on our show. I know you said it on yours. This is a one step in a journey of 1,000 miles. And so it's going to be a long time before all this is sorted out. So I would just caution everybody to really pay attention to those that know what they're talking about. Follow shows like Peek Around the Corner, our show, Big 12 Mafia, and others. And really pay attention to the people who are spending the time so that you don't have to. And the service that I think we provide has been really, I think, existential for people to understand what's going on. Could you imagine where we would have been if Bob Thompson hadn't come out and given us an education last summer?
Yeah, yes. Bob Thompson, a lot of people out there doing incredible work. And I appreciate the wisdom that Bob Thompson and others have given us. That cannot be denied. Great words, Nathan.
I just want to ask you one question because you're smarter than I am. So we're looking forward, and we think that UNC, Clemson, Florida, there's a lot of indicators that say those schools are, they might have soft landings relatively shortly after things start popping with the ACC. If I was to pin you down, what would be the fourth school that you would say 99% chance finds another soft landing?
Outside of Florida State, Clemson, and North Carolina?
Yes. I think your size says it all, right?
Yeah, I mean, I just can't go there. I want to go there. Because there are huge stories inside this gigantic story, and they got to be played out. The North Carolina State is the proposal going to pass that was proposed in October, where the UNC system chancellor Peter Hands is going to have to they're going to have to tell North Carolina if they're going to lead the conference, they have to have a financial plan. They have to put it in front of the UNC system president, who, by the way, is not only the system president of North Carolina, but of North Carolina State. If that proposal passes, then North Carolina State it's going to be difficult for North Carolina to dislodge themselves from North Carolina State. And then you have the Virginia situation, where it's not just the Attorney General of Virginia, politicians within that state. Those two institutions are intertwined. We got information from a University of Virginia money perch who basically said, man, it's going to be near impossible to separate Virginia from Virginia Tech. So those are two big stories. So when you say, who is that fourth school? Then you got Miami, Florida lurking there. That it's a private institution that, there is no hurdles like that. So, Nathan, I don't know, man. I can't answer that question. I don't have the answer.
And I think that's the point is there aren't a lot of people that do, which is why it's so important to track shows like ours. Anyway, I just wanted to check in. I had that one question for you. It's been sort of simmering on my front of my head today, so I thought I'd ask.
Appreciate it, Nathan Brown. Thank you so much for the call.
You bet. Have a great day, Greg, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, sir. Great call by Nathan Brown. I think here in a little bit you want to check out his Twitter account. I think they're going to have Twitter Spaces or X Spaces, whatever you want to call it. You want to check that out. Great call, Nate. Absolutely. I'm sorry about that, LFG. Personal Minnesota note for me today. Learned this week that a very important old friend from White Bear Lake, Minnesota had passed away. A truly great soul lost. I'm so sorry, LFG. My comment back to you, sir, is the next time you see your very important friend again, the next time you see that important friend, it will be forever. I'm so sorry for your loss. Hang in there. It's tough to lose friends. Go Noles, Florida State. Good call on the Florida State Board of Trustees meeting. We broke that news last night. I'm going to put it up on the screen. Whoops, I screwed up. Hold on.
Call from
JD. Mr. Seminole is on the line. I'm so glad you called. I know you're a busy man. I'll try to be quiet. I'm going to try to let you have the complete total floor. But you know the fat guy from Minnesota likes to talk. But I got to say, this is a big day. A meeting posted tomorrow. We're going to be doing a live show on it, JD. We reported it last night that this was going to happen. Buckle up, JD. Buckle up. The floor is yours.
Yes, sir, and I appreciate all the filling in the gaps and throwing out information as often as you can over the last several months. It's been very informative and reassuring for us. I've been hearing things in other places, and I've been hearing some really interesting stuff that I cannot talk about here because I've been successful so far not to burn some inside sources that I hear things from, but there's some things, and I will say this. Well, first, before I go off on that little tangent, and I'm gonna try to keep things on track here. I appreciate what Attorney Dave was saying, but we have to remember who started this domino of consolidation, and it was the SEC. The SEC started this when they brought in Oklahoma and Texas. And then the Big Ten matched. And then now the Big Ten has done other things to match. They destabilized college football. What do they expect everyone else who wants to compete at the highest level to do? They created such a revenue disparity with everybody else. So I understand as we could sit here and say, well, it's not healthy for the future of college football. Well, that's all fine and good, but you created such a disadvantage that everybody else is trying to get into that club. Otherwise, they're going to be irrelevant. I think the Big 12 might survive, but and they've got a commissioner. You got to admit, I mean, he is the most proactive man out there in sports, in college sports, and he's fighting tooth and nail every day to make sure they stay relevant.
Yeah.
But as far as the rest of it, no. I mean, save the, and I don't mean this as a shot to Attorney Dave. I don't mean that at all. I'm saying is that when you're going to start hearing articles about, well, is this really healthy for college football? You should have asked that at the beginning. When you basically destroyed the Big 12 or that version of the Big 12 when you let Texas and Oklahoma go into the SEC and you decided whether or not that was healthy. Granted, that's what Texas and Oklahoma wanted to do. It's a free country. I'm a capitalist. It's fair. But college football has been kind of an association, not necessarily a democracy, as far as there was just the collegial aspect of it. And now what's happened is they've turned it upside down so much, there has to be a reorganization. Otherwise, it's broken. Do you follow along with that?
Yeah. Yep. Yes. And I'm not going to take too much time, but there were forces at play that were beyond the conferences of the schools. It was the courts. Sure. It was the courts. So
yes,
Texas and Oklahoma called the SEC in 2019 because they had a pretty good idea what was coming. and everything has gone after that. So yeah, but go ahead. I understand what, and I think Attorney Dave understands all that as well. But go ahead.
And again, I'm not, I'm not criticizing him. That's just a general theme that I've heard over the last year and a half as FSU is looking at it as their turn. Like, wow, if we want to compete in major college sports, we have to make a move. And I see articles where they're like, oh, well, that's just not the good for college football. So it's for the better of college football that we just dwindle away into a lack of relevancy? Is that for the best interest of college football?
Yeah.
Because as we've seen in 3 weeks, what's happened? What's going to happen in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years?
Yeah.
We're going to be what I'm not going to throw other people's universities out there because it's just not fair. But we wouldn't be relevant in the national stage, and we just wouldn't. So this is all about survival.
And that takes me to a point I saw on Twitter where somebody. By the way, Ryan Willie, I appreciate the super chat. I'm just an Evil Badger fan, but I think this will happen sooner than people think. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate your continued generosity to the channel. I do apologize. I did not get to your comments sooner. So, Evil Badger, I want to apologize to you, sir. But anyways, JD, somebody was analyzing, it was an Oklahoma Sooner, really good Twitter account, saying, Florida State, they got to make sure, no, he didn't say it. He said something to the effect of, Florida State, they better make sure they get full bank. They better not come in as a discount to the SEC of the Big Ten, or it's not worth their while because they're going to have to be owing so much money. And my answer was, Florida State, if they can jump on a moving train right now, they do it. And sure, they want to get as much money as possible when it comes to the next 5-6 years in the SEC media deal or the next few years in the Big Ten media deal. They don't want to come too much as a discount. But Florida State, Clemson, they're going to be jumping onto that moving train because the benefits, even at coming out at a discount, is way more than staying where they are. They're gonna Florida State and Clemson, if they can get to the SEC or Big Ten landing spot as early as possible, they're going to do it. They are going to jump in $10 million difference either way on a 3-4 year media deal that's not the big picture of it. The big picture of it is Florida State gets into the Big Ten of the SEC, and now they can look into the future. They can fundraise. They can create sponsorships bigger than ever because those who are part of those institutions or companies or whatever, they know the brand of Florida State is going to be there for the next 20, 25, 30 years and beyond. I just wanted to put that out there. JD, go ahead. Finish up the phone call. I apologize for ranting once again.
No worries at all. Real quick, I do want to throw out there, I was listening to, one of the FSU podcasts this morning, the guys from 247. So it was Chris Nee and Brendan Sinone were talking.
I love Chris Nee. Yep.
And they've been hearing the rumors of a Friday announcement for a while. And I think that's pretty much throughout FSU media. They've been hearing about rumors of a Friday announcement. They just didn't know which Friday. They noticed that a lot of media, like the Andrea Adelsons and so on, have been around, and they're all friends. They all know each other, and so they figured there might be something popping, but it's of their opinion, and it's in the opinion of from everybody has seen in FSU media that it's the Big Ten. I mean, that's just their personal opinion. It's the Big Ten.
Yeah.
And our Big Ten insider on the board. They haven't talked about whether or not it was a full share. Maybe they come in at a partial share. He's insistent that they're coming in at a higher share than Washington and Oregon. Now, I don't know what that is, and I don't know percentages. I don't know term. I don't think anybody knows the term for sure. I do know that, and I'm going to wrap this call up here in a second because I could talk with you for an hour on this subject for all me, because I've got a lot of stuff I could talk about.
Well, we're going to have a lot of shows.
I've heard a lot of things.
Yeah.
But let's just think about where we were 18 months, 2 years ago. Did we believe FSU was ever going to be leaving the ACC before 2036 or maybe even 2032, 2033?
When I reported on December 26, 2022, yes, at that point I believed it. Yeah. Months ago I said it's going to happen. We believe it's going to happen the next 3 months. Yeah. Now, before 2022, no, I did not. No, I did not.
Things are fluid. Things change, and sometimes, let's just say often, our perceptions of the way things are going to be aren't the same in public versus what they really are. Public perceptions sometimes are the furthest from the truth, often are the furthest from the truth. I don't think negotiations are just starting. I understand where you and others... one thing that we have to remember, and I'll talk faster, about the grant of rights. It grants rights to the ACC, and those rights are given. In other words, the grant of rights supports the ACC ESPN contract. That's the purpose of the grant of rights. It supports it. The rights are in the contract. We know what the grant of rights says. We have that. That's public. The ACC ESPN contract is what's locked up and people can't see. That's what they have to go to the headquarters to view, is the actual contract. The rights are in the contract. We don't know if the rights that have been given to ESPN and are owned by the ACC are enforceable. That's why they would go to court. And don't be surprised that this is a bit of a facade. I think I've heard some things, and I know, and I don't know, and I can't verify. I just believe things are going to come out. Oh, it's going to cost a lot of money to get out, but it's not going to be the exorbitant figure that some had suggested. Because why would you go to court otherwise? If you could stroke a check for $500 to $600 million, the ACC wouldn't make you go to court. They're not going to make you go to court for that. They'd take that all day long. You have 3 schools that are going to give you over $1 billion, $1.5 billion to leave. Oh, they'll do it now. No. The point of going to court and the point of negotiation is just to get the number down. Is it going to be expensive? Oh, yeah, it is. But there's no point of going to court if you're going to pay full amount. And that's the thing. So I'm not disagreeing with anybody else. I'm just saying, just like everybody is now surprised that FSU is making the move sooner, don't be surprised if they get out a lot cheaper than people think. A lot cheaper. And we'll revisit that in about a year, and I think people are going to be really shocked on how it just the dominoes fell into place. And they're going to realize, man, they'd been working, like you say, this had been worked on for months and a year better behind the scenes. It was just all a public perception and a public campaign and everything else. And that's just my speculation. That's just my personal speculation. But anyway, we'll see. It's going to be interesting. I'm just thankful the process is officially starting.
Yeah.
But
yeah. It's going to be a very interesting day tomorrow. Hopefully you can join us for a little bit, at least tomorrow morning.
I'm going to try. I had this little window to call in, and tomorrow's a busy day, so I will try. But we'll if you're are you going to have it going on during, or are you going to have a reaction show?
We're going to be on during it. We're going to be giving our reaction. I'm not going to have it up on the screen, though. So people are going to, if they're watching our show, they're going to have it on a different, screen platform or whatever.
I've got to work, but I'm going to be listening to it on my headphones while it's working. But if you're still on afterward, then I'll definitely call in.
Yep.
But All right, sir. Thank you so much for
Appreciate
your time.
it. Thank you. Great call, JB.
Bye.
Mr. Seminole, we got there's a comment here. Very interesting comment. Had to do with the pro rata. SEC pro rata. And of course, I cannot find it. Canes all day. The SEC has a pro rata agreement with ESPN. All members come in at a full share. Source, Brett McMurphy. I did see Brett McMurphy writing in Action Network December 12th, 2022. Brett McMurphy, Action Network, December 12th, 2022. The SEC currently does not have a pro rata privilege from ESPN, but beginning in 2024 season.
Call from
Steve.
Steve, can you hold on 1 second, sir?
Sure.
I appreciate it. So I'm going to read you this on the question of SEC and pro rata. Brett McMurphy, writing in Action Network, December 12th, 2022. The SEC currently does not have pro rata privilege from ESPN, but beginning in 2024, there will be a pro rata provision, which brings Texas and Oklahoma into the conference at full rate and allows the SEC to go shopping. Sankey was playing possum when he pleaded for a silent period recently. This is from Brett McMurphy. This was, this was in the midst. This was like 14 days before we reported at Peek Around the Corner about what Florida State was going to do, what they're planning on. So, according to this report by Brett McMurphy, there will be pro rata. In other words, the SEC will be able to say, yeah, if they're interested in Florida State, ESPN provision, according to Action Network, that Florida State would get the full payout. And the Big 12 doesn't have, the Big 10 doesn't have that. There is no pro rata provision. Now, they might be willing to do it, but it's not a provision. Very interesting key point. Steve, Mr. Bearcat, the floor is yours, sir.
Very interesting that they're doing this 3 days before Christmas. I thought they would wait until at least after January 1st, but maybe there's some shocking things that will happen or transpire tomorrow. Who knows? But the timing to me is, I don't want to call it urgency, but I want to call it, there's a reason for it. Am I off base there? Am I reading
well,
too
yeah,
much into it?
Florida State just got a big reminder of what their future is going to look like, trying to compete at the highest level of college football. For most of us, but for institutions, for brands, for fan bases, when they're expected to compete at the highest level of college football, Florida State got a big flash reality. They don't want to waste any more time. They want a long runway. They want to get out as quick as possible. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons for it.
Yeah. Another thing I want to touch on, Greg, and I'm going to. It's going to sound like a negative connotation when I start, but at the end, I think I'm going to be able to justify what I'm about to say.
Okay.
What's happened to Oregon State and Washington State? This isn't the first time this has happened to teams. There was a thing called the BCS, where there was a BCS eligible conference that Jim Swofford and ESPN decided they were going to blow it up. They were successful. There were some successful teams in that conference who played in BCS bowls.
Yes, sir.
Who didn't get into what was then termed the Group of Five.
Yes, sir.
Well, those teams all of a sudden that didn't get in, that were relatively, well, not relatively, pretty darn successful in the Big Ten or the Big East, had to wait their time. Well, there's one of them that waited their time, and they waited their time for 10 years, and they got into a 4-team playoff. Okay? Now we're going to a 12-team playoff. If I'm Washington State and Oregon State, you just want to always keep that belief that no matter where we are on the pay scale compared to the autonomous four, whatever anybody wants to term that let's be as successful as we can. Let's decide 12-0 may get us the 12th seed in the playoff and go from there, because that was, and I'll argue this to the day because I know it's a fact, that was Cincinnati's attitude. Okay? And they just about didn't get in because they were 12-0. The only reason they got in 12-0 is because the team that was ranked behind them in the playoff standings, they beat at Notre Dame. They beat Notre Dame at Notre Dame.
Yep. Yes, sir. Yep.
So for everybody from Washington State and Oregon State, as bleak as it may look, and believe me, it's a tough road. It'll be a tough road for them.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a way. Is it an easy path? No. But, you know, they're left behind for now. Who knows what's all going to shake out. I agree with your opinion that Yormark's done going west for now and maybe for a long, long time. But there's some ways that Oregon State and Washington State may see a bigger payday down the line. And maybe even, not get an automatic bid, but as things would shake out in the next few years, have a better shot at getting to the playoffs or relatively good success. So, this is the first time it happened to a good, good football programs that were Power 5 or programs that were BCS. This is the first time it happened. And there is a path, although it's very, very difficult. And I'll just leave you with that, Greg.
You got it. No, I appreciate it. I appreciate you calling and giving us that perspective, because other schools, institutions, fan bases, alumni, boosters, student athletes, there's others that have gone through this, that Oregon State and Washington State are going through now. There may be a pathway to the ACC once it implodes. So you bring up a great point, Stephen. Great phone call. Thank you so very much, sir. Appreciate it.
Have a great day.
You too. Tough Tony, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate your continued generosity to this channel. Thank you so much. ESPN has no money for expansion until they finalize a new contract with the NBA. After that, the college football playoffs, new deal. Big Ten strikes first. But if it is part of the contract, that new contract starts officially July 1st, 2024. The new media deal that between SEC and ESPN, that new media deal hasn't even taken effect yet. Hasn't even taken effect yet. Those schools, the SEC schools, have not started pocketing that big increase in cash that's coming there. But once that media deal takes place, July 1st, 2024, according to Brett McMurphy's reporting on December 12th, 2022, once that new media contract gets going, ESPN, it's in the deal. ESPN has to offer pro rata to the additions of what schools the SEC wants. Now, is there somewhere in there where, if the SEC says we want Georgia Southern, of course ESPN is going to be able to say no on that. But when it comes to like an addition of North Carolina, I mean, if you think about it, if that provision's in there, that pro rata provision's in there, it's a lot easier. A lot easier for the SEC if they want to take North Carolina, Virginia, if they want to expand that footprint. Like ESPN's been telling everybody that that's their number one, number two targets. We've been getting told the same thing. It could be done to grab a North Carolina State, a Virginia, and a Virginia Tech. They could take the 4 top public universities out of those 2 states. And I don't know if ESPN could balk at that. What SEC schools would balk at that? Would they really balk at that, those 4 additions? Would they? Nothing against North Carolina State, and Virginia Tech football programs. But would that really threaten the 16 other SEC schools? Would it? I tell you what, it would bring on Virginia, North Carolina, the big demographics, big time basketball programs, Virginia, North Carolina State. That's a whole... If the pro rata provision's in there, and it sounds like it is, the skids don't have to be greased for North Carolina State and Virginia Tech. So many storylines. We're trying to watch them all. But the one that we got to watch is that proposal in North Carolina Board of Governors. Is it going to pass? In other words, is North Carolina State going to be able to tie their hips to North Carolina when it comes to the responsibilities of the UNC system president, Peter Hans? Is he going to have to take North Carolina State's interest at heart if North Carolina proposes that they move to the SEC? If that proposal passes, he's going to have to. And then you got the Virginia Tech story. That is an entanglement upon entanglement upon entanglement. Thank you so much, Tony, for the super chat. Appreciate it. Cypher, thank you, sir, for the Cypher chat. Appreciate it very much. Eventually, the top of the SEC joins the Big Ten, and the rest goes to the Big 12. It's about money, academics, athletics, consolidation, new regional conference. Yeah, I really think that if the SEC ever fractures and that the Big Ten ever fractures, we're looking at years down the road. Could it happen? Could the economic forces of more consolidation where the Big Ten fractures, the SEC fractures, and the top brands of those 2 conferences join in the Super League? Absolutely, it could happen. But not by 2026, which is the next great gold rush. So that could happen, Cypher. No question about it. Realignment never sleeps. Thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate it so very much. And another component to all of this, what's going on, the reporting of Yahoo and ESPN and what we're hearing and everything, is, we got the playoffs for 2024, 2025. It doesn't sound like there's a whole bunch of media companies are willing to bid on this. if they don't have access to college football playoff content in 2026, 27, 28, 29. These media companies don't want to do a 2-year deal. They want to do a 10-year deal, 12-year deal. So the money right now, there is not much inertia, money. There is not much competition for the 11 games playoff content for 24-25. So the money might be coming in less than expected. Less than expected, the playoff money for the Autonomy 4 conferences and the G5 conferences. Again, we're still in this tight media market. So that might be affecting situation on the ground. So keep an eye on that as well. So thank you so much, Cypher, for the super chat again. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and get yourself notified. We did a late night show last night. We're doing a lunch show this afternoon. Tomorrow morning, we could be doing a breakfast show. So the only way to keep track of what we're doing at Peek Around the Corner, covering the breaking stories in college football, is to get yourself subscribed, get yourself notified, and please smash the like button if you like our content. Also, if you're interested, we've been providing early peak episodes for membership only. This is Cloak and Dagger information. We drop it first, and then we talk about it later in the day on a live show. If you're interested, hit the join button. If you're interested, hit the join button. We dropped early episode 11 yesterday morning. Has some really good stuff in it when it comes to a certain G5 conference. So if you're interested, hit the join button. Let's get back to your comments and your phone calls. Tony, always a good idea to look at Disney's balance sheet before people spend their money. Disney didn't cut $7.5 billion in spending in calendar 2023 because things are going great. RX, negotiating with the NBA and the NFL is only one league at a time. Negotiating with the minor league college football is at least 4 conferences at a time. Canes all day. If Virginia and Virginia Tech are tied to the hip, as you explained, so shall be North Carolina and North Carolina State. They very well may be already before that proposal passes. But if that proposal passes, the North Carolina Board of Governors proposal passes, that North Carolina would have to submit a financial plan before they left the conference, they get more tied to the hip.
Call from
Jamie Thornton.
Jamie Thornton, Arkansas Razorback, is in the house. Holy smokes. The floor is yours, Jamie.
Well, I've got to say, Greg, my wife is back, and she's ready for the Huskies to win the national title. So
oh!
She said, if you're smart and you're betting money, don't. She's trying to give you guys a Christmas gift. Put all your money on the Huskies, and you'll be okay.
All right. All right. They're going to be a tough out. Tough team to beat.
Yeah. Yeah, nobody gave them any credit. They kept saying Oregon was going to win that game twice, and they pulled it out twice. So, good for them. I hope they can do it. I hope they can pull it off.
Yeah.
But, I think there's something really interesting about this pro rata. I just kind of got a chance to break away from work here and kind of catch you here at the back end of the show. But one of the things that's interesting, I know the situation ESPN's in, but don't forget this, because this was talked about by the SEC as far as ways to pay for these extra schools. SEC has only got an 8-game conference schedule right now, as many know. And simply by adding these teams and going to a 9 or a 10-game schedule, that brings in a whole lot of extra money to ESPN that they can just, instead of trying to rework and get more, they can just keep and then that way they can pay these schools. So that's
Great
just something
point, Jamie. Great point.
Yeah, that's just something to keep in mind. ESPN doesn't really have to come up with extra money. All they have to do is just go to like a 9-game schedule and so forth, and essentially they pay for themselves. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what Florida State does. Do they? I know the anger. You know, it's anytime you make decisions in anger, right? A lot of times it doesn't work out best, and luckily for them right now, they just want to get out of the ACC, and that's going to take a while. But the question that's going to come to them, if the SEC does still have interest in Florida State, and we can offer you a full share right off, or the Big Ten offers you a partial share for a number of years, they're going to have to make that decision. If both of them come knocking, it's going to be very interesting to see how that decision is made.
Yeah,
for sure.
I will say tomorrow's meeting, the Board of Trustees meeting, whatever happens there, whatever is decided there, whatever legal filings they do, if they do it tomorrow or in the first week of January, it could be right, it could be wrong, it could be ending up good for Florida State, could be ending up bad. But I think we can rest assured everybody that this decision, this meeting for tomorrow, wasn't really done in anger, because this has been planned. Maybe not having it on December 21st, but this process has been planned out, as we first reported December 26, 2022, here at Peek Around the Corner. This has been
Right.
in the works for months. The private equity partner building that up for months. So this is not really an impulsive move. It might have been moved up a couple weeks, but it's not an impulsive move.
And you're right, and that's the advantage right here is they're not deciding today. They're not deciding at this meeting what conference we're going to. They just want to get out, and so it works out perfect for them, you know. And trust me, don't think that North Carolina and of course Clemson and all these other schools aren't watching, because it's going to be interesting to see. The thing is the SEC, you know, they definitely, I can tell you this much, they definitely are happy at 16. I don't think they have a need to go to plus 20 like the Big might end up going to, especially with Notre Dame if they ever join. So you've got to kind of think of yourself, well, the SEC might have 4 spots available here. How bad does the SEC want Virginia? And that's what I keep trying to find out, because if they have to take both Virginia Tech, the SEC is going to take plus 1 in North Carolina, period, because they want UNC worse than anybody. So that kind of leaves 2 slots. So that would mean, like, if you take FSU, that might take Virginia off the board for the SEC. So it's just something to think about. But, of course, we're a long ways away from that. But it's going to be interesting to see what kind of an agreement can FSU and the ACC come to. What's it going to cost? I still 100% believe it's going to cost them $300 million plus.
So
and I think that's obviously why you have this firm.
Yeah.
No offense to JD, but I'm just telling you, just look at what happened with Oklahoma and Texas.
Yeah.
1 year leaving, going to the same network, all that. The Big 12 still, they negotiated a deal, still cost them $50 million each for 1 year.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking a long time left here still, even if they don't leave, officially until after next football season. So this is going to be fun. I'm happy for them. I know right now their main thing is they want out, and it's obviously just best for both parties at this point that they leave. So
all right, Jamie.
But great show, and you guys have a great one. Woo Pick Suey as always, and go Huskies.
Beautiful. Huskies, Suey. Holy smokes, what a combination. Thank you, Jamie.
I know that, right? Who would have thunk it? You guys have a good one.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the wonderful call, Jamie. Appreciate it. Cypher, thank you for becoming an early peak member of our show. You are Cloak and Dagger Knighted. Thank you so much, Cypher. Appreciate you coming on board. Early peak membership gives you an early peek in our early peek episodes, dropping cloak and dagger information constantly on those episodes. And we also have episodes for everybody. Those are not stopping. We've had big ones here in the last couple of weeks. Go check them out. Episode 346, put down yesterday. Jacob Nelson, thank you for coming on in. Appreciate you. Will forever be Florida State fan. Now moving forward after the ESPN, SEC hosed them and ACC so bad in college football playoffs, in my opinion, made them America's underdog. Excuse me. America's underdogs. Go Heels. Thank you so much, Jacob Nelson, for the super chat. A lot of people agree with you, Jacob. A lot of people agree with you. Thank you for your generosity to this channel. Thank you so very much. Thank you for coming on into the chat room. Appreciate it. Let's get back. Still, the phone calls are open. They're still buzzing. 763-260-1333. As we said, we're going to be here as long as you need us to be here to get through this. Tomorrow, we're going to be doing a live show starting at 8:45 Central Time, 9:45 Eastern Time. We're going to be covering the Board of Trustees, Florida State's Board of Trustees meeting. If it's anything like the last one, last summer, it's going to be fireworks. Holy smokes, it's going to be fireworks. We'll see. The main point of the meeting, is there going to be a legal filing coming out of that meeting? Starting tomorrow, December 22nd, a legal filing to say to some local court in Tallahassee, Florida, yeah, we want to get out of the ACC. Tell us if there is some sort of case that we could be made against the grant of rights. And look, we reported it December 26, 2022, that the first quarter of 2024 was going to be the time that the stake, the spear, was going to be put into the ground. It looks like we could potentially be 9 days off. So we're going to have to take the L tomorrow if that legal filing happens. We'll see. We thought it was going to be January, February, March. Things have sped up a little bit. Trying to give you the best peek around the corner in college football. We'll see what happens. Then there's so many other storylines. It's not just about Florida State's... it's not just about Florida State and what they do. Although that's the biggest part of the story tomorrow. It's about the counteraction, the reaction of Clemson. I don't think we're going to get much of a reaction out of North Carolina. But the reaction out of Clemson, in public and private, leaked, we're going to be on top of it. The reaction of Jim Phillips, the commissioner of the ACC, if that legal filing happens tomorrow or whenever it happens. Jim Phillips' reaction. The reaction of ESPN themselves. And I'm not just talking about the corporate office, the ones who make the decisions. I'm talking about the talking heads. I'm talking about Paul Feinbaum. What's their reaction going to be? Are they just going to... I think they're going to give us a good glimpse of what ESPN is thinking. Are they going to just shrug their shoulders and say, well, Florida State's really not valuable. You know, we're not... The SEC is really... Well, they're only interested in the North Carolina and Virginia. Are they going to give that type of reaction? Or are they going to say, whoa, look what's going to happen, possibly going to happen? So we're going to check that out. It's not just what Florida State is about to do. Putting their spear in the ground and saying, this is our declaration. Not notice of withdrawal, but declaration of what we're going to go and try to do in the next couple months. It's all the reactions in and around that. I don't think we're going to hear anything from the Big Ten or the SEC. But the reactions of Jim Phillips, the SEC, the talking heads at ESPN, And like Wake Forest athletic director, Syracuse's president, are they going to have any public reactions? Or they're going to keep it silent, communicating with Jim Phillips, trying to possibly shut this down or get the best deal possible out of Florida State, out of Clemson. And I'm going to say it now. I've said it before. I'm going to say it tomorrow in the next show. But whatever Florida State does tomorrow into January, we have reasons to believe, we've been reporting on this for months, Clemson is close behind. Remember, in the Holy Smokes Theater, as we wind down this live show, we're winding it down. In the Holy Smokes Theater, it is Florida State and Clemson at the center of the stage, together. Florida State is not alone. They might be first, but they're not alone. We have reasons to believe this. So buckle up Clemson, buckle up Florida State. Popcorn emergency shipment is arriving as we speak at the Holy Smokes Theater. So, we're going to wrap it up for today. We've been on the air for 2 hours and 50 minutes. I want to thank you all for joining us. Join us tomorrow, 8:45 Central, 9:45 Eastern. Tomorrow is a big, big, big day. The day we've been waiting on for the last 360 days when we first reported to you all that this was coming down. All of this has been coming down. The Florida State Money Perch continues to communicate with us. We broke a story last night. We're breaking more stories probably in the next 24 to 48 hours. So stick with us here at Peek Around the Corner. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe. Get yourself notified. Check in on joining to becoming an early Peek member. And tell your friends, tell your family, especially in the Clemson, Florida State, North Carolina, the Hokies, the Cavaliers, and everybody in between, especially the Canes. Let them know that there's college football's Peek Around the Corner. We've been there from the beginning. We nailed it on USC, Oregon, Washington, Colorado, and we are right here at the Holy Smokes Theater in PATC country talking about the incoming ACC implosion. Until next time, which is tomorrow morning, 9:45 Eastern Time, a.m. Until next time, from all of us at PATC, to all of you, please you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.